Welcome to Playback, Tier 2 World's weekly showcase of our best stories from around the globe. Coming up, Ukrainian President Zelenskyy is taking aim at those who say Ukraine should surrender some of its territory to the Russians in order to end the 3-month conflict. The governor of Texas insists mental health issues and not the availability of guns are to blame for mass shootings. Vigils have been held for the 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed by a teenage gunman in Texas on Tuesday. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has again apologized for illegal lockdown parties at 10 Downing Street, but he claims he has been vindicated by the official report. Africa Day marks the anniversary of the signing of the Organization of African Unity agreements. We follow this year's celebrations in Istanbul. We start with the conflict in Ukraine. President Zelenskyy is taking aim at those who say the country should surrender some of its territory to the Russians in order to end the 3-month conflict. This while Russia continues to capture towns and villages in the east with relentless shelling of military and civilian targets. TRT's Andy Rosejan has more.
With these hypothermic bombs, Russian forces are now closer than ever to trapping thousands of Ukraine's best troops in the eastern Donbass by closing in on the twin cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. A Ukrainian official says Russian soldiers did seize the last highway out of those cities briefly before being beaten back.
The enemy has used all resources to capture our territory and surrender our forces. The fighting has reached maximum intensity. We are in for a very difficult and long stage of the struggle.
If those 2 cities fall, nearly all of the Donbass province of Luhansk would come under Russian control. And after having left it alone for weeks, Russia has now resumed its shelling of Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv.
The shells were flying over the village back and forth. We were just hoping they wouldn't hit us, but they did. They hit the entire village.
When it was over, at least 9 people were killed, according to an infuriated Ukrainian President Zelenskyy.
In the cities and regions close to the border with Russia, in Donetsk and Luhansk, they gather everyone they can to fill the space of killed and injured in a contingent of occupiers. All of this, including deportation of our people and massive killings of civilians, is a clear politic of genocide conducted by Russia.
But Russia's gains are emboldening Moscow. A Kremlin spokesperson says that once Kyiv makes a sober assessment of what's happening on the battlefield, Moscow expects it to accept Russia's demand to cede territory in the east. Meanwhile, Italy's prime minister says he called Russian President Putin on Thursday to urge an end to Russia's blockade of Ukrainian wheat that is causing a global food shortage. Moscow says it will if the West starts to lift sanctions against Russia, but the White House on Thursday said no. But even as Russia appears to be gaining on the ground, Zelenskyy continues to show off Western support in Kyiv, meeting on Thursday with Finland's prime minister and thanking her for supplying weapons to Ukraine. Andy Rosejan, TRT World, Washington.
Meanwhile, more than 6 million people have fled Ukraine, escaping Russian attacks which have killed thousands, flattened cities, and created Europe's biggest refugee crisis since the end of World War II. One small border city in neighboring Poland is hosting up to 100,000 refugees and is struggling to meet their needs. Mehmet Solmaz has their report.
When Russia first began its war on Ukraine, neighboring Poland welcomed refugees with open arms. Towns along the border received tens of thousands of people escaping the bombs. The Polish border city of Rzeszów was pushed to its limits, but residents did everything they could to help. This hotel owner says he has paid out of pocket to house refugees at his popular summer wedding venue and is still waiting for government support.
When Putin announced that he would invade Ukraine, Ukrainians started to call us. We got along. We spoke a little Polish and a little Ukrainian. We told them that we have free rooms and we would accept anyone who wanted to stay here for an unspecified period of time.
But months later, local services and residents are feeling the strain. The region has already been hit by sharp cost of living increases. The government acknowledges the burden.
Are there any problems? Of course there are problems, and there will always be problems because there are new actions. Many local governments had to undertake many new procedural steps, but all funds that they request, we are trying to donate as soon as possible.
Local authorities say the government has provided little financial assistance and that the city needs new schools and housing.
While numerically there are more refugees in Warsaw and Wrocław, the scale of population growth in Rzeszów is the highest, and this must be taken into account. I hope this will be reflected in the work of the government and, above all, in the financial help.
1.1 million Ukrainians have registered for national identification numbers in Poland since the war began. That includes more than 500,000 children. It means that now 7% of the children living in Poland are Ukrainian. Somehow Poland must find homes for them to live in and schools for them to attend by the time the next school year starts in September.